Welcome to another episode of Books and Bytes.
Today we're diving into a real giant of literature, Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace.
Absolutely. Published way back in the 1860s. It's just this incredible immersion into Russian society during the Napoleonic Wars. We're talking, roughly 1805 to 1820?
Exactly. And the scale is immense. I mean, there are over 500 characters weaving in and out.
But the core really revolves around three main aristocratic families, doesn't it? The Rostovs.
The Bolkonskys and the Bezukhovs. Their lives just get completely tangled up with each other and with the huge historical events happening around them.
So our mission today really is to pull out the key threads, the all-important elements of this massive book, and give you a solid handle on it.
Sounds like a plan. It's a challenge, but let's try and capture the essence.
Okay, so where does Tolstoy drop us in first? What's the starting point?
We land right in the middle of high society St. Petersburg, July 1805. It's a salon hosted by Anna Pavlovna Scherer.
Ah, the famous opening scene. And the conversation is pretty charged, right?
Oh, definitely. Everyone's talking about Napoleon Bonaparte. Russia's about to ally against France, so tensions are high. Politics, intrigue. It's all there from page 1.
And we meet some really crucial characters straight away. Who should we be looking out for?
Well, there's Prince Vasily Kuragin. Very smooth, very calculating. He's got his eye on Count Bezukhov's fortune.
Okay, the schemer.
Right. Then you have Prince Andrei Bolkonsky. He's handsome, intelligent, but clearly bored stiff with this society life. He's planning to join the army, looking for, well, something more.
Purpose, maybe. Glory.
Exactly. And then there's Pierre Bezukhov. He's the illegitimate son of that wealthy Count Bezukhov, just back from Europe, full of Enlightenment ideas.
He sounds a bit out of place.
Completely socially awkward, idealistic, and he even defends Napoleon a bit, which definitely ruffles feathers in that company.
But there's an interesting connection right away between Andrei and Pierre, isn't there? Despite being so different.
Yes, that's established very early. Andrei sees something genuine in Pierre, maybe his lack of pretense. He confides in him about his unhappy marriage, his ambitions.
So that friendship is foundational.
Absolutely. It becomes this anchor point throughout the whole novel as they both search for meaning in completely different ways.
Then Tolstoy shifts gears.
Yeah.
Takes us away from St. Petersburg.
To the Rostock household in Moscow. And the vibe is totally different.
How so? Less formal.
Much less formal. It's warm, a bit chaotic, full of life and emotion. We arrive during a name day celebration for the Countess and young Natasha.
Ah, Natasha Rostova. Tell us about this family.
You've got Count Ilya Rostov, the father, really generous, maybe too generous, the Countess, and the kids. Natasha, who's just bursting with life, really vibrant and emotional.
Right.
Then Nikolai, the older son, he's already a hussar officer. Vera, who's more reserved and proper, and little Petya.
And there are others too, aren't there? Cousins and such.
Yes, Sonia. She's an orphan cousin who's desperately in love with Nikolai. And Boris Drubetskoy is there with his mother, Anna Mikhailovna, who's quite the operator herself, always looking out for her son's prospects.
What's the key takeaway about the Rostovs early on?
Their warmth, their impulsiveness, they live through their emotions. Natasha's singing at the party is a perfect example. It's pure feeling. But there's also a hint of financial trouble brewing. They're not exactly careful with money.
That generosity might come back to bite them.
It becomes a major plot point, yes.
Okay, so while the Rostovs celebrate, Pierre's life is about to change dramatically, isn't it? His father, the Count.
Yes, Count Bezukhov is dying. And Anna Mikhailovna, Boris's mother, kind of drags Pierre to the bedside.
Why?
Well, officially, it's the right thing to do. Unofficially, there's a lot of maneuvering around the will. Prince Vasily is there, too, trying to secure the inheritance for himself. There's this tense scene where they're almost physically fighting over a portfolio.
Which might contain the will.
Exactly. But in the end, surprise. Pierre is revealed to have been legitimized by his father, and he inherits everything. A massive fortune.
Wow. From awkward outsider to one of Russia's richest men overnight. How does he handle that?
Not well initially. He's completely bewildered. And Prince Vasily immediately swoops in, becoming his guide, his mentor.
But really looking to control him and the money.
Precisely. Pierre is suddenly very popular, very eligible, but also very vulnerable to manipulation.
Let's switch focus again to the third family, the Bolkonskys. We meet Andrei's father at their estate, Bold Hills. What's he like?
Prince Nikolai Bolkonsky, the old prince. He's formidable. An eccentric, retired general, very intellectual, obsessed with science, math, but also quite tyrannical.
Sounds tough to live with.
Definitely. He runs his estate and his family with an iron fist. He's particularly strict with his daughter, Princess Maria.
Tell us about Maria.
She's depicted as quite plain, very devoutly religious, shy, and completely under her father's thumb. He insists on educating her rigorously himself.
And Andrei arrives there with his wife before heading off to war.
Yes, he brings his pregnant wife, Lisa. She's charming, sociable, the little princess, but she's terrified of the old prince and feels isolated at Bald Hills.
So the farewell before Andrei leaves must be strained.
Very. Lisa is upset, naturally. Princess Maria gives Andrei a small icon for protection, a gesture of faith. Andrei himself seems torn. He wants the glory of war, yes, but maybe also an escape from his marriage, from this whole life.
He seems quite disillusioned already.
Deeply. He's searching for something grand, something meaningful, and thinks he'll find it in battle.
So both Nikolai Rostov and Andrei Bolkonsky head off to the 1805 campaign. How does their first taste of war differ from their expectations?
It's a rude awakening for both, in different ways. Nikolai joins his hussar regiment, finds the camaraderie, the uniforms, the horses, but also the petty realities, like dealing with difficult officers like Denisov, or catching thieves like Talyanin.
And Andrei. He's on Kutuzov's staff, right?
Yeah.
More strategic level.
Yes, he's observing the high command, attending war councils. He sees the egos, the flawed planning, but also respects Kutuzov's quiet wisdom.
Then comes the Battle of Schöngrabern, a key early moment.
Definitely. For Nikolai, it's his first real combat. It's terrifying, confusing. He gets slightly wounded, feels shame rather than heroism. It shatters his romantic notions.
And Andrei.
Andrei witnesses Prince Bagratión's skillful delaying action. He sees real leadership under fire and starts to understand heroism not as flamboyant gestures, but as calm duty and effectiveness.
Which sets the stage for the massive Battle of Austerlitz. What happens to them there?
Austerlitz is devastating. The Allied plan is flawed. Napoleon anticipates their moves. It's chaos.
And Andrei's moment of glory.
He sees a standard fall, rallies the troops, charges forward, and gets seriously wounded. Lying there, looking up at the infinite sky, he has this profound realization.
About what?
About the vanity of glory of Napoleon, of all his ambitions. It all seems so small compared to that vast, peaceful sky. Napoleon even rides past and remarks on his beautiful death, not realizing he's alive.
A life-changing moment. What about Nikolai?
Nikolai witnesses the utter rout of the Russian army, sees Tsar Alexander himself looking panicked and defeated. It completely destroys his faith in the leadership and the whole idea of glorious warfare. Total disillusionment.
So, they both return profoundly changed. Back in Russia, Pierre's life takes another dramatic turn with his marriage.
Oh, yes. Pierre, still naive despite his wealth, gets maneuvered by Prince Vasily into marrying his beautiful but cold and ambitious daughter, Helene.
Disaster waiting to happen.
Pretty much immediately, they have nothing in common. She loves society, he's searching for deeper meaning. Then the rumors start about Helene and Dolokhov.
Dolokhov, the notorious troublemaker.
The same. Pierre, furious and protective of his honor, challenges Dolokhov to a duel. Amazingly, despite having no experience, Pierre wounds him.
That must shake him up.
Deeply. He's horrified by what he's done. It triggers a huge spiritual crisis. He separates from Helene, leaves St. Petersburg, and starts searching for answers.
And that leads him to Freemasonry.
Yes. He meets a Freemason who guides him into the Brotherhood. Pierre embraces it wholeheartedly, seeing it as a path to virtue and improving humanity. He even tries to reform his estates, improve the lives of his serfs.
Does it work?
Well, his intentions are good, but he's impractical. His efforts mostly lead to confusion and being cheated by his stewards, but the search itself is important for him.
Meanwhile, Andrei is dealing with his own trauma back at Bald Hills.
Yes. He survives Austerlitz, makes it home, only for his wife Lisa to die giving birth to their son.
Oh, terrible. After everything else.
It sends him into a deep depression. He blames himself, withdraws completely. He feels his life is over.
But Pierre visits him, right? Does that help?
Immensely. Their long philosophical talks, Pierre's passionate, if sometimes confused idealism, it slowly starts to pull Andrei out of his despair. They talk about God, life, meaning.
Rekindle something in Andrei.
Exactly. And then later, there's this famous moment where Andrei sees an old, seemingly dead oak tree on his estate. He passes it again later, and it's burst into leaf.
A symbol of renewal.
Precisely. It convinces him that life isn't over at 31. He decides to re-engage, to find purpose again, this time not in war, but in civil service. He goes to work with the reformer Speransky.
While these big philosophical journeys are happening, what's going on with the Rostovs? You mentioned financial trouble earlier.
Yes, things are getting worse. Count Rostov is just incapable of managing money. Nikolai comes home on leave, feels the pressure, but reaffirms his commitment to Sonia, even though his parents hope he'll marry rich.
But they still keep up appearances.
Oh, yes. They throw this incredibly lavish reception for General Bagration in Moscow, a hero after the 1805 campaign. It shows they're still socially prominent, but it's financially reckless.
And Natasha, is she growing up?
Definitely. She's becoming this incredibly captivating young woman. It's still impulsive, but there's a new depth emerging.
Tolstoy also includes these amazing scenes of country life, like the hunt at Otradno. Why are those important?
They root the story deeply in Russian soil and tradition. The hunt itself is thrilling, showing Nikolai's connection to that world. Then there's the visit to their uncle, the music, the folk singing.
And Natasha's dancing.
Yes. She just instinctively understands and performs this traditional Russian dance. It shows her connection to the authentic national spirit, something beyond the Frenchified manners of the aristocracy.
And the sleigh ride scene?
Pure magic. It's this transcendent moment for Natasha, under the moonlight, feeling connected to nature, to life. It parallels Andrei's oak tree moment, but it's full of youthful joy and intuition.
That joy seems to carry over to her first big social event, the debutante ball in St. Petersburg.
It does. The Rostovs go to St. Petersburg, hoping to improve their finances and introduce Natasha to society. She's nervous at first, a bit overwhelmed.
But she makes an impression.
Helene Karagina, surprisingly, takes her under her wing a bit. But the key moment is when Prince Andrei sees her. He's been jaded, working with Speransky, feeling disillusioned again.
And Natasha changes that.
Her vitality, her genuine emotion, it just cuts through his cynicism. He asks her to dance, and during that waltz, he feels this surge of hope and happiness he hasn't felt in years.
And so a romance begins.
A very intense one. Andrei is completely smitten and proposes quite quickly.
And Natasha accepts.
Joyfully, she's swept off her feet. It seems like a perfect match.
But Andrei's father, the old prince, he's not happy, is he?
Not at all. He disapproves strongly, thinks the Rostovs are beneath them, flighty, bad with money. He refuses his blessing unless Andrei agrees to wait a year and travel abroad.
A whole year's separation. That's harsh.
Extremely. It casts a shadow over their happiness. Andrei has to go, and Natasha is left waiting. There's also this really awkward first meeting between Natasha and Andrei's sister, Maria. They just don't click.
Foreshadowing trouble.
Definitely. And while Andrei is away, Natasha is stuck in Moscow. Her family's money problems are getting worse, and she starts to feel restless, lonely, vulnerable.
And that's when Anatol Kuragin enters the picture. Helene's brother.
Exactly. The Rostovs are staying with Maria Dmitrievna Akhrusimova, a sort of formidable godmother figure in Moscow society. Anatol, handsome and utterly amoral, sees Natasha and decides he wants her.
Even though she's engaged?
That means nothing to him, and Helene actively helps him pursue Natasha. It's a calculated seduction. Flattery, secret meetings, passionate letters.
And Natasha falls for it.
She gets swept up in the intensity. Anatol proposes a secret elopement. He's completely lying. Of course, he's already secretly married to a Polish woman.
Does the elopement happen?
No, thankfully. Sonia, Natasha's cousin, suspects something, discovers the plan, and tells Maria Dmitrievna.
Who puts a stop to it?
Forcefully. The scandal is contained, but Anatol's treachery is revealed. Natasha's absolutely devastated, humiliated, heartbroken.
How does she react?
She's in despair, even tries to poison herself with arsenic. It's a very low point.
And Pierre steps in?
Yes. He becomes her confidant, offers comfort and understanding without judgment, and it's in comforting Natasha that Pierre realizes he's deeply in love with her himself.
Does he confront Anatol?
Oh, yes. Pierre tracks him down, forces him to give back Natasha's letters and leave Moscow immediately. It's a rare moment of decisive action for Pierre.
What about Andrei? Does he find out?
Pierre feels obligated to tell him, though he dreads it. Andrei receives the news coldly and formally breaks off the engagement. He can't forgive her perceived betrayal.
So, heartbreak all around. And meanwhile, the bigger storm is gathering. 1812.
Exactly. While all these personal dramas are playing out, the political situation is deteriorating rapidly. War with France seems inevitable.
How does Tolstoy show this rising tension?
Through conversations, anxieties. Pierre attends dinners where everyone's debating the coming war. He sees Kutuzov again, the man who will eventually lead Russia. There's the appearance of this huge comet in the sky.
A bad omen. Or something else.
People interpret it differently. For Pierre, it feels like a sign of massive, world-changing events to come, both terrifying and somehow exhilarating. Then, on June 24th, Napoleon's Grande Armée crosses into Russia. The invasion begins.
And the Russian strategy is retreat.
Yes, initially. To draw the French deeper into Russia, stretching their supply lines, avoiding a decisive battle until the time is right.
We see this retreat through Andrei's eyes, don't we?
We do. He's rejoined the army, but refuses the staff position, wanting to be with the troops. He sees the squabbling among the generals, the frustration, but feels a grim sense of purpose.
And Pierre. He doesn't just sit back, does he?
No, Pierre is compelled to witness it all. He decides to travel to the front lines, to the site of the upcoming major battle near Borodino.
And he meets Andrei there again.
Yes, a chance, poignant meeting on the eve of the battle. Andrei is fatalistic, convinced many of them will die tomorrow. He seems to have found a kind of peace, but it's a somber one.
Tell us about the Battle of Borodino itself.
Tolstoy's depiction is legendary. It's not glorious, it's chaotic, brutal, terrifyingly real. Pierre, a civilian, wanders right into the heart of it, ending up at the fiercely contested Raevsky Redoubt.
He sees the true face of war.
Absolutely, the sheer horror and randomness of it. And during the battle, Andrei is mortally wounded by an exploding shell.
A devastating blow. Was the battle a victory for either side?
Not really. The casualties were immense on both sides. Napoleon called it his most terrible battle. The Russians inflicted huge losses, but ultimately had to withdraw, leaving the road to Moscow open. Kutuzov makes the incredibly difficult decision to abandon the city.
The abandonment and burning of Moscow, another iconic part of the book.
The city evacuates in chaos, the Rostovs are leaving, and Natasha insists they empty their wagons of possessions to make space for wounded soldiers.
And Andrei is among them, unknowingly.
Unknowingly at first, yes. A moment of compassion with huge consequences. Meanwhile, the French army marches into a nearly empty, eerie Moscow.
What's Pierre doing?
Pierre stays behind. He gets this wild idea that he's destined to assassinate Napoleon. He wanders the emptying city in disguise.
And then fire starts?
Yes. It breaks out, whether by Russian design or accident. Tolstoy leaves ambiguous and quickly spreads, consuming the largely wooden city.
Does Pierre try to stop Napoleon?
No, he gets caught up in the chaos of the fire. He actually saves a child, defends a woman, but ends up arrested by the French as a suspected arsonist.
So he becomes a prisoner of war.
Exactly. And this period of captivity becomes one of the most transformative experiences of his life, especially his encounter with a fellow prisoner.
Platon
Karatev, a simple peasant soldier who embodies a kind of natural wisdom, acceptance, and connection to life that deeply affects Pierre. He learns humility, resilience, the value of simple human connection.
While Pierre is imprisoned, what's happening with the Rostovs and Andrei?
The Rostovs have relocated to Yaroslavl. They get news that Petya, the youngest son, has eagerly joined the army, a worry for them.
And they discover Andrei?
Yes. Natasha finds him among the wounded they transported. She realizes who it is and immediately devotes herself to caring for him.
Is there a reconciliation?
A profound one. In his final days, Andrei finds peace. He forgives Natasha, understands her actions. He undergoes this kind of spiritual transformation, embracing love and letting go of his earthly struggles. He experiences death not as an end, but as an awakening.
Does Princess Maria get there?
Yes. She arrives, and she and Natasha form an unexpected, deep bond through their shared grief and love for Andrei. His death is peaceful, with both of them beside him.
How does this loss affect Natasha?
It matures her deeply. She grieves, but quietly. And her strength becomes crucial later when the news arrives that Petya has been killed in a skirmish. She has to support her devastated mother.
So much loss. What about the French army and Pierre?
Napoleon finally orders the retreat from Moscow in late October, but it's too late. Winter sets in with a vengeance.
The famous disastrous retreat.
Exactly. Starvation, freezing cold, constant attacks by partisans and Cossacks. Pierre witnesses the horrific suffering, sees Karatayev weaken and die, unable to keep up.
But Pierre survives.
Yes. He's eventually liberated during a raid by a Russian partisan group led by Denisov and Dolokhov.
Dolokhov again.
Always turning up. Tragically, this is the same engagement where young Pyotr Fostov is killed, full of youthful bravado.
And Kutuzov's strategy during this.
He continues his strategy of attrition, letting General Winter and the partisans do most of the work, harassing the retreating French but avoiding major battles that would cost Russian lives unnecessarily. He preserves his army while the Grande Armée disintegrates.
Battles like Krasno and the Berezina River crossing
Were the final nails in the coffin for the French. Devastating losses. It was the catastrophic end of Napoleon's invasion.
So after all this war, destruction, and personal turmoil, how does Tolstoy bring things towards a close? Briefly, what happens in the peace part?
Well, years pass, life rebuilds. Pierre, profoundly changed, and Natasha, matured by grief, finally find their way to each other. They marry, have a family, and find a grounded, if sometimes chaotic, domestic happiness.
That feels earned somehow. What about Nikolai Rostov and Princess Maria?
Nikolai works hard to restore the Rostov finances. He eventually marries Princess Maria, perhaps initially for practical reasons, but they find deep respect and affection, creating a stable, harmonious household at Bald Hills.
In Andrei's son.
Young Andrei Bolkonsky is growing up, dreaming of his father's legacy, perhaps hinting at future cycles of history and idealism. Tolstoy basically shows life continuing, families forming, peace returning, but always under the shadow of the experiences they've all endured.
It really emphasizes those core themes, doesn't it? The interplay of huge historical forces and individual lives, the search for meaning, family.
Absolutely. And the specific Russian character, the importance of connection to the land, simple truths versus complex ideologies, it's all woven together.
So looking back on our deep dive, we've traced the journeys from the salons of St. Petersburg through the chaos of war and back to a semblance of peace.
We've seen characters like Andrei search for glory and find epiphany in the sky, Pierre search for meaning through ideas and find it in captivity, and Natasha find maturity through love and loss.
It's such a vast canvas. We've really only been able to touch on the key moments and themes today. The richness of the novel is just staggering.
Truly. There's so much more, the philosophical essays, the detailed historical analysis, the hundreds of other characters. It's a world in itself.
To delve deeper into this epic tale and experience the full scope of Tolstoy's masterpiece, grab a copy of War and Peace from the link in the description.
It's definitely worth the commitment.
And don't forget to subscribe to Books and Bytes for more literary deep dives.